Okay, so now we're going to build a crypt using the new modular crypt system. The first thing we have to do is we have to get the textures imported, right? So we want these scene or these themes from Dungeon Draft, and I'm going to link to those in the video description, and you can import them using the Dungeon Draft import feature, and you can either wipe out what you've got or add to it with what we're adding here. But we're just going to start by drawing a basic scene. I'm using the Dungeon Draw tools here, just add components. Now, when I don't recommend creating hallways with only one square wide. It doesn't work as well in 3D. It's not enough room to move around, and sometimes you'll find your things will get stuck. But then I'm going to open this up and I'm just going to click on the Crypt theme, and it's going to assign that theme as the main theme to the scene. So you can see it's created a background. It's created this sort of embedded wall where it looks like it's surrounded by other stuff, by the block. And now I'm going to drag in my tile sets. I'm going to play with some of these, and I'm going to just release those using the token attacher function. And now I'm going to drag this staircase over here, and I'm going to hold down Alt so I can stretch it to the tiles that I want. And now I've just got that in there, and it's already got some basic intelligence in it, but I'll end up coding that to a destination at some point. Here I'm just playing with some of the decor elements. I feel like maybe I want there to be a little depression there. Maybe I'll put something in that space. And now I'm going to start dragging components. So these are designed to go with the Dungeon Draw theme. Again, you don't have to use Dungeon Draw, but it's just nice if you want to make your own custom spaces. And now I'm just going to cut and paste this particular component a couple of times. That didn't really fit on my wall. I could either change my Dungeon Draw wall by expanding a little bit, or I'll just switch to this, different kind of 2x2 component. And now I'm just kind of looking at more things like how do I want to sort of dress up the space. And I feel like I want to have a secret passage. So I've dragged in one of the secret passages, and then I'm going to drag in sort of a twin that is not a secret passage, just to kind of make this not seem so obvious that it might be a secret passage, right? They'd have to investigate these different little nooks to ultimately figure out that one of those is a false wall. And I'll drag in one that's got, some statues, and probably could use some torches. So I'll just drag in my torches, and these are just automatically interactive. They just work. They'll increment assuming you have Tagger installed, they'll increment for each one that you drag into the thing so they can operate uniquely. And then I'll just drag in some of these basic pillars. There's pillars and other components with other dungeon scenes you can mix and match. We're just sticking with the cemetery and crypt elements for right now. But here we dragged in, this large sarcophagus. I could resize this thing if I wanted to, just using token attacher. If you change the size of the control token, it'll change the size of all the attachments as well. This is feeling pretty good as a starting point. Now I'm going to go ahead and draw more room up here, up above. Use my square tool, my rectangle tool to get that part, and then you can switch to round if you want to make some interesting rounded rooms. And this gives me a nice, just kind of interesting room shape. And now, I told you before, there's a bug, at least as of this moment. And notice we're going to address our walls here in a second. But the bug is that I have to increment that door. So there's one area where it doesn't increment properly, and it's this screen right here. So we're going to increment it to match the other ones, and now the sound works, but it also makes the wall change. And you can see that tile is just specially designed so it just writes right over top, and it looks flush with everything else. And maybe I want this to be a different statue, so I turn on quick edit mode to interact with these things. And maybe I want this to be a little bit different size. So it looks pretty good. And then who knows what I'll end up putting in that room. I won't try to design it here, but you can put anything in there. You could put a sarcophagus, you could put a treasure, you could put a ladder somewhere else. Here I'm just showing you can drop in whole mausoleums, and they fit well into this space also. Just to give you an idea of other things that you could do here. But yeah, this is feeling pretty good. My torches are are interacting. Of course, I would need to code my staircase to where I want its destination to be. But pretty quickly, I've got a working design here. And I click that macro, and what that does is that just releases and deletes all of the control tokens. So now all of these pieces are no longer prefabs. They're just tiles and other things on the scene. And now I'm redrawing these walls. And the reason I'm doing it is because I don't want to maintain the dungeon draw walls. I just wanted it to draw the floors. In this case, I'm going to have the walls be separate. And I'm actually going to delete the dungeon draw instructions from this scene. The reason I'm going to do that is because if I reload the scene with those instructions, it's going to redraw all of those walls, and I don't want that. And so now I'm exporting that background image, and I'm waiting for this little confirmation to show up. And what that did was, and here I'm going to delete those instructions, because now I'm going to take that background image that I generated, and I'm going to now apply that as the background image here. It'll by default, it'll save it to your topmost area of your files. But that was that image. I select it, and now I'm looking at that background that I drew, but it's now a static image. It's a single image stretched across the whole thing. So this is a nice optimized scene ready to play. Now I'm going to add some of my FX Master Crypt environment stuff here, because I want those little moats and things floating around. And then I'm going to add some Michael Gelfi background here. And that's in the Towns module under Sounds. You can find it under Ambiances, and all the Michael Gelfi stuff will be there. And I'll be using more of his stuff going forward. It's just really outstanding. I recommend you join his Patreon if you haven't already. It's really all the environmental music and ambiances that you need. So here we just added a couple of effects. Now let's join our new scene. And this is pretty good. You know, we can add puzzles, like depending on how creative you are, you can do all kinds of stuff with this. But that is a pretty fast scene, and this was just using the components of the crypt and cemetery stuff. There's all sorts of other things that you can mix and match with the castle set, with dungeons and other things that I've got deployed, that you really can go hog wild with, you know, designing your own stuff, or just simply making some additions or changes to the ones that I've already created for you. So hopefully that helps you guys, and let me know in the comments if I missed anything.